Here there is a series of different accessories. These are the last one. Please don't laugh. This is probably was the project, the most beautiful I've done this year. Why? Because a brand that produces prosciutto, ham. This is why you ate so much. You ate super well, right, with all this prosciutto. And it was super good, delicious. And to test the various knives and everything, and the surfaces, I had to eat. I had to try it. This brand that produces prosciutto all of a sudden asked me to design for them some knives and the s'mores, which is the structure that holds the prosciutto. And I said, I accept this, but I don't only want to design objects, I also want to create an entire imaginary around the world of prosciutto, of ham. So an entire mind style around this 360-degree. It was creating the objects, putting this brand in direct contact with Berti, which is one of the most important brands of handmade knives in Italy. We have created the concept, which was presented at the Salone del Mobile, and so on. And here there is the example of the two lines of the superior line, which is this, and the basic, which is this. Well, the idea that the brand had was that of giving these as a present according to the ham that they would order. After the Salone del Mobile, they've decided they want to sell these products directly. This is the morse. This is also interesting because normally for prosciutto, there's a series of different kinds of prosciutto. There's a Praga, there's a Parma, there's a San Daniele. And as a culture, every ham, Iberico, well, everyone has a different morse because they have different sizes. In this case, the idea was that of doing one which was universal, that would work for all these types of prosciutto. We also have worked on garments. We thought of jackets, aprons, the texture, which is basically a pattern that reproduces the logo. The logo originates from the revisitation of the triangle and rectangle that you find in the basket, which was the first packaging in which this ham was placed in once you purchased it. And this is some pictures of the event that was on the Super Studio's roof, where there was a first part, which was sort of a museum, where they present all the objects that I just show you in the garments, and then you'd enter, there was this great lounge with almost all the products that I've designed that were living together, and you'd sit there to eat this prosciutto and drink some wine and so on. And these are some other images. Let me just interrupt you. Well, this dimension of art direction, which is the one that many designers follow, which specialize themselves in this, well, I believe you haven't actually followed this through. This is probably the most... you've done some things, right, in terms of art direction. Well, with Italeste, well, the first, no, just to understand if you're concerned in this. Is this, definitely I'm concerned with it. You are in love with this idea of the total look, let's call it total look, but, or are you more product design? Let's focus on the object and the rest, who cares? No, actually, I'm very concerned in taking a look at the totalitarian aspect. This is another aspect of the project. And how I was saying before, I'm focused and I like to go from the small scale to the process of materials, all the way to reaching an entire imaginary. Probably I can actually create an imaginary when I work not with brands that already have experience in the design world, but when it's sometimes I need to basically go from some solid brands that go from traditions that come from other fields. Look at the ham industry. or Italesse as well, but before, as my work as a designer and an art director, they were specialized only in beverages. Rather now, they are moving to the market of the retail, where I have also involved with international designer, Patrick and others. Absolutely, I do not believe in the art direction monobrand. I think that's very reductive, and here in Italy I think that this type of art direction happens very frequently. I believe it enriches you much more when you actually have some comparisons. And this gives the possibility of having the brand be visible in other points of view. Timeline for Scultuna. My inspiration was Venice. Because the first meeting I have done with this brand was that the great problem was that brass. And I remember that my grandmother would clean this brass, like the hand doorknobs and handles and everything. If you remember, Venice is full of these handles that it's like a lion, right, or the angel and stuff, all made of brass. And when you go and clean them, you just clean the external surface, and therefore all, let's say, the wrinkles and all the carvings, like the eyes and everything, you see it, that there is oxide on them. In this case, I took this like problematic, let's say, that for them was a problem, and I started thinking how this could actually become a pro, and therefore that was a plus. And the name Timeline gives you the idea. There's all these lines. The more time goes by, the oxidation enters these incisions. And when you go polish this, you're polishing only the external part. I wanted to create a relation between time and the object. This is a USB drive that I've designed for Affect. Every year they ask a different designer to design their USB pen drive, where inside they put their press information and so on. This key was done in 4 colors, just for me, because for every fair they distribute different colors. Green was for Stockholm, brown was for Milan, and so on. When they asked me to design the pen drive, I just came back from Japan. And this trip from Japan, I was very surprised by the tradition of exchanging business cards with a ritual that's very particular. Since here there was a transfer of information between a brand and some journalists, my thought was that of doing a 3D business card. This was Bose and Venini, the celebration and combining these two materials. They have a sort of history and backgrounds which is pretty similar. Rather than designing something which was new, was that of designing the best objects of 1,000 years. The tools that you need to use to work these materials. So here I've tried to transform these molds rather than boxes or processes into objects that you could use, some vases, some candle holders, or hangers. This is the typical mold to blow glass. Usually it's in a wood. This is the box for the transport. This is the fusion. When glass is poured into sand molds, this you can't really see it. It's a centrifuge. When a drop and this turns around, these are the typical molds for ceramic. And this is the reinterpretation of what occurs when the masters blow and they decide to put in a bucket all the canes that they've used and straws that they used to blow. And seeing the use that they've done of this object, which is basically a bucket with these straws in it, and when it's warm during the summer, they just put their clothes on that, and therefore it's funny how this could be a hanger. Therefore, I believe the ovens, the glass ovens, and the Morenas is actually your inspiration and obsession. So these things give you some input. It's an island of 5,000 people, and since I grew up, well, this was basically part of, I don't know, maybe for you, like a motorbike, I don't know, it was like a... These are some bowls, lunar, always in ceramic. These are some umbrella holders that arrive from the observation that normally there's never the space for small umbrellas. When you put one small one, you just lose it. Here the idea is that of creating one for the big and one for the small. This is an object, it's my need, it's called U-box. I always forget everything. And so I thought of a container attached to the clothes hanger. Think of a family or something. Well, here everyone has his color where you can put everything, your mobile, everything. So when you leave your house, you know that in that box, there's everything you need. Here there's the entire work of Italesse. These are the last plates I've designed. That have this like small. This is, people think it's just to handle these better, but actually the idea was when you usually finish working and you put down your cutlery, they usually drop. With this small detail here, you don't drop your cutlery, fork and knife. These are parts of the family 24, which is a series of plates and bowls that this actually consumes the food today, how people consume the food today. It's not something very formal, but it becomes an object that can work 24 hours a day, from the breakfast to the end. And this is the rest of the collection. This was always observing the use of barmen, that usually to break the ice, they usually get a handkerchief or something made of cloth, and they just break the ice, right? And there was no object, and I thought to create this, which is a silicone bag, where you insert the ice, you close this, like Jolly and Victim, pack, and you break it, and you open it, you can drop the ice, the crushed ice. This Be Cool, always for Italesse, it's a small glasset for beer bottles. And also in this case, he was taking an object which was a packaging in polystyrene or very poor materials and making this become a product. And this product is thought both not to freeze your hand, and especially in those countries like Thailand or Brazil, where in 1 nanosecond, Titan is a thermal that especially in professional wine drinkers, they want to have the correct temperature for wine. And this is produced in glass, but with another type of glass, which is an automatic glass. It has 1,000 different pieces a year produced. And the idea was that normally in the flutes and bars, to pour the correct quantity, there's always this terrible thing, 10 Nichetto. Well, in that, observing this graphics that to me was horrible and it didn't work, I thought to create a flute that had the same shape, and it would actually give you the line to understand the correct limit of the quantity of wine. This is stripe, it's a tray that lives on the idea of having very high borders made in soft plastic, therefore the injection, just like your toothbrush. And this is rather the project I did for Guzzini, Mirage. And this, once again, it goes back to the glass effect, because the brand called me to ask me if it was possible to transform in plastic and the injection molding some effects that you normally have in glass. These are the last projects that work with reflex ceramics, with different types of industrial ceramics. And here I've done an entire work of finding a structure, the origin of glass porcelain, which represent as if this was seen in a microscope, and I've made this become the texture of the product. And here, yeah, we can actually see your sensibility for materials and what is the world of surfaces, textures, which is a specificity which has to be investigated a lot. We have to write books about this, the specificity of design, which is typical of the Italian design. Yes, definitely. Here there is a work which, besides this project, like for example Mutina with Urchiola, with Shoka, and with Shaya Kalayo, and they've done some incredible work linked to the surface and texture, and I believe this is a topic which can absolutely be investigated more into depth, not only for what concerns the surfaces, but also to understand what kind of potentiality this could have in other situations. Here, rather, a project in fabric, G-Art, because notice this brand has a series of different suppliers around the world. And one in China, one in Pakistan, Afghanistan, around Middle East. And they were asking me if I could actually design a rug. The first consideration, I said, hey, I do not feel capable of going in some way and interfere with what is the culture of these artisans that have in their decorations their story. Therefore, in this case, I started designing a series of shapes, and these shapes are produced exclusively in one country. And the artisan and some textures of that shape. This is in India, this is in Moroso. So this rug is produced, and it's then combined. It's like a Roman route made of different pebbles that all come from different places.